So when I came across KAOSPILOT, I knew that it was the right fit for me.
I believe I work very much myself with learning by doing. I like to get in the dirt.
Many other university institutions started with a week of drinking, getting shit-faced.
Parties, in a way, represent the perfect way for a KP student to practice their skills.
One of the fundamental aspects of the education is projects.
All right, wonderful. So, we're back in the studio. Today, I'm here with Maria. She's from the first year of KAOSPILOT students. And I'm here today, Kasper, your host for this session. I'm from the second year of the KAOSPILOT students. What we're going to be doing today, essentially, is we're going to be exploring one of the core ideas that I find, and the planners of the episode find relevant with Maria and the school. And we're going to focus a little bit on something called alternative education, which to some degree we have an expert sitting on the other side of the table. And right now, I think we're just going to kick it off with a little bit about yourself. All right?
Yeah.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about, first of all, welcome also.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and a short story of how you got to KP?
Okay, I can try my best. So my name is Maria. I'm 25, and I'm from London. I've been living here in Denmark for 3 years now, and it was actually alternative education that brought me to Denmark. So I think it's if I had to give a chapter to this point in my life, it could probably be alternative education, or finding my path through alternative education. And yeah, I finished high school about 7 years ago, and it took me 3 years to kind of navigate myself after high school, and it's not a typical thing to do in the circles I came from in London to take multiple gap years. It's normal to take maybe one and then go back to the normal education system, but for me it was really not natural to go back. I deferred a place at university in the UK, and it kind of just became a way to close that door and find my own path. I did traveling and working and stuff like that. And yeah, it was really difficult to see myself going back to education in the UK, higher education. And I knew it just didn't resonate with me, but I couldn't really pin my finger on it, why it was not resonating. And I also don't think I really tried to delve deeper into that or explore. I just went more onto my own path of traveling and wanting to understand culture and different places in the world and stories in the world and things like that. And I think it was through that I came across an opportunity to do education here in Denmark, and that was an alternative style of education. And it spoke to a lot of my values that I hadn't really articulated, but once I saw that, it really just hit home. And they were concepts of community and learning in a collective and learning by doing and learning through traveling as well. And so that was my first insight into alternative education.
So that was another school that you were at in Denmark before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it was through getting introduced to those principles in that previous education that I had kind of refined my understanding of what I wished to interact with in terms of education. And so what kind of education I expect and will only put myself, be placed in. So when I came across KAOSPILOT and saw how much that corresponded with my identity or my values in education, I knew that it was the right fit for me, because there was this aspect of community, aspect of learning by doing, learning in a collective, and especially through experiences. I think that was a core thing for me, that I really wanted to put a lot of the things that I had learned in my previous education into action and try it out and explore through my own failings and development. So that's in essence my sort of short story in alternative education.
Cool. Well, we're very glad to have you. In that case, I'm curious a little bit just about your day-to-day.
Okay.
What was the big, if any, lifestyle changes for you when you started at KP?
I think my previous education was very intensive, so I was really looking forward to like a more routine, like every like regular day-to-day life. But I don't think that's happened. I still feel like it's still quite intensive till study at KAOSPILOT. Like it's this 9 to 4, which you think is a nice clean cutoff, like you can then go do whatever you want. But I still feel like my days are fully packed. Like when I come home, I'm like going to bed at 11, doing so many things after I finish school, and it's nice. But it also means that I have to like remember to take things slow sometimes and find a way to take in the things that are going on in school. There's a lot of information and a lot of opportunities to learn things, and they can often just go over your head if you're not able to be present with them.
How has it been to live in Denmark, coming from London? I assume not speaking the language?
No.
No? Okay, wow, clever. What's that been like to enter Danish society?
I actually think that this semester has been my first experience kind of stepping into the Danish society. I have been previously also in international education. So I've been, maybe you can say lucky that I've been always in English-speaking spaces. So I haven't really been that challenged to step into the world of being in a space where it's not the first language that I speak. But on the other hand, I still feel like I'm kind of a guest in a house, like, like you're not fully part of that space, but you're kind of a visitor or something like that, even though I've been here for 3 years, because I haven't been able to speak the language, so I don't always understand all the nuances of things that are going on or the intimate details of like conversations. Maybe if I want to, speak to the bartender or something like that, like of course I can get by in English, but it's a difference to be able to speak the native language of the country. But I think, obviously I came from a metropolitan city to Denmark, but I think the previous education I was in had given me enough of a transition into adapting here, and I really, really like the size of Aarhus. Like I've been living in smaller cities like Odense and even smaller ones in Denmark during my previous education. So right now I'm really happy with this size. Like I think I've kind of become a small city girl or something like that. So,
That's interesting.
I'm quite happy to be living here. I think it's a really good size for a student.
Yeah. So on the language thing, I'm a little curious here. And because you're the subject of an investigation today, exploration, I'd like to hear a bit more about what it's like being that guest in the House of Denmark. Could you put some more words on it? What is it? What are the differences of language that you experience? And is there anything else that you think is particular to the house that you're in here?
Denmark's quite a unique case that so many people are quite proficient in English, like to a very strong level, and it's very, very impressive. It makes my life very easy, but in terms of learning Danish, very difficult. And I think there's a bit of a stigma against Brits being lazy to learn a second language, and maybe I held a little bit for that.
But Brits and Americans.
Yeah, I do speak a second language, but I guess that doesn't account for much in this setting. But I don't know. I think
so. You've been trying to learn, and it's been difficult because a lot of people meet you with English.
I think that I'll be putting my efforts in a high regard.
Okay, I hear you. Very humble.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have a Danish boyfriend, so I'm naturally around that kind of environment quite easily. But I feel like, maybe this comes back to my daily life and how intensive it is. I think learning a language does take a lot of effort, and I think you have to really be in that mindset to be able to dedicate that time and that energy to learn a whole other language on top of your education, on top of your job, on top of your extracurriculars in your social life. So I personally don't feel like that's fitting for my current lifestyle right now. So it's not something I've been able to dedicate my time towards. But
all good. In that case, we're going to move on a little bit to what is a large part of your lifestyle, the KAOSPILOT education. Could you tell us a little bit about it? What has been some impressions from your first semester?
No. It's so hard to find a way to start because the education has been so much. Like it's also been so varied. Like if I think about like the first day or the last semester or what we're doing now, there's so many different things that come up in my head that are all kind of like
let's go.
Related.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that really stands out or shines bright in my mind is the first trip we took as a team to Friheden, which was like somehow a retreat to a place in the countryside of Jylland, which is the island or the region of Denmark we're in. And it was a time for us to really figure out who we are as a team, figure out people who are in our team, figure out the feeling of what it means to be a KAOSPILOT student, or the values that we want to create within our little community, and get to know each other. But I really liked the frame under which that experience was created, that we were in a place of nature, we were not drinking, we were doing lots of different like activities. Some were like ritualistic, some were like based on connection and just exploration of ourselves and the people we were surrounded by. And I think that was such a strong foundation to build our KAOSPILOT journey on. And I really appreciated that, because I think you can easily start an education under like such different frames. Like many other university institutions started with a week of drinking, and I personally don't really have a strong relationship to alcohol, and I wouldn't have felt like that would have been appropriate for me to build ties with people getting shit-faced.
Right, freshers, like, is that what they call it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think they have similar concepts here in Denmark in other universities. So I really appreciated that it was done in a different setting than that. And to have such an intensive experience where we could really get to know the people we're going to be calling a team for the rest of the 3 years. I think that was crucial for our journey. And then we went into another deep dive, like right into the deep end of the pool, doing a 30th anniversary preparation for our school.
Right, for the whole school.
Yeah.
We're celebrating our 30th anniversary.
For the alumni of the school.
Wow.
That was quite
huge.
And I think that experience really pushed me out of my comfort zone, because it's not a realm that I'm really familiar, not that I'm not familiar, but I'm not really getting myself involved in to do events and parties, to organize such things.
So you guys were part of the organizing team.
We were the lead organizers.
The lead organizers in the first semester.
We came up with the whole concept, and like that was like the second week or something we were in school. So it was the first activity we had to do as a group, as a collective. And yeah, I think it was a experience for sure. Very different to what we've been doing since then, like in terms of content, like in terms of focus. To be doing something like organizing a party, it was quite a different theme, and something that I personally wouldn't have chosen for myself as a focus point. But I think it was special to be given that kind of topic to do, that kind of task to do, because it showed me how I can try to put my skills to test in a place that I wouldn't naturally choose for myself. And especially to work together as a whole team. That was something that I think was really crucial for us to do straight away, to do a big task that had high stakes. And we were under pressure a lot.
Yeah, well, I've almost only heard good things about y'all. I think the party went really well.
Yeah.
From the outside, of course. I know that on the inside it's always a different story, but that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
And it reminds me of a funny anecdote somebody was telling me about how, from one of the earlier teams, about how parties in a way represent the perfect way for a KP student to practice their skills. There's almost everything relevant involved with regard to project management. There's money involved, budgeting, you got to make some money back. There's customer service, there's delegation, there's experience design. You need to make sure that things go well process-wise.
And there's a deadline.
There's a clear deadline. You got to get it done. And then you get the party. And that's, of course, I think part of KP as well is to appreciate, celebrate, and gather. Talk a lot about connection. So on that note of the first semester, to keep it a little bit tangible here, I want to ask you more also about your take on this. But for now, let's talk about what you spend your time on. Like, how would you describe the hours you spend, those 9 to 4, what are they comprised of throughout the semester? Because you've described very different things. So,
No.
Yeah.
So I think one of the fundamental aspects of the education is projects. So we are studying through creating projects. And that's a very broad term. And that's kind of what it's supposed to mean, that you have the opportunity to decide which kind of project you want to do. And sometimes you are told what kind of project you need to do. Like I just mentioned with the 30th anniversary, we were given a brief. We were told like which kind of work what kind of task we had to do. And then it was up to us to decide which kind of party we wanted to create. But we were told we had to create a party or an anniversary event party. Yeah. But then and then there was another period after that where we had a project period called the first CP, which was the first
client project.
Thank you.
Yes.
Client project. I've been calling it one CP for too long. And there we had a lot more autonomy to decide which kind of project we wanted to do. And that was a period for about 5 weeks. So for that 5-week period, we were seeing a project from start to finish, like seeing it through. And there we were very self-organized in our group. We were in groups of around 4 to 5 people. And we had to basically brainstorm what we wanted the project to look like. And depending on if we had a product to deliver or if we were developing an idea or whatever it was that the project entailed, we were basically seeing that through. And we were meeting with clients because it was a client project. So we were often holding meetings with them to confer and brainstorm and get told off sometimes.
Okay, yeah.
Whatever it was. But that's what it looks like essentially during a project period. But around that, we have moments where we have workshops from guest lecturers. And they can vary very much in like the theme of what is being covered. Those are designed by our curriculum and our team leaders who decide which kind of workshops we have. But those have been quite varied during the first semester. Some of them were relating to how to do project management or experience design, things which are relevant for creating a project. And others were more geared towards our self-development. So we were doing things like something called Getting Over Yourself, which was to do with learning how to work in a team and put our egos aside so we can collaborate better, and finding your voice so we could figure out how to lead and
a singing one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To articulate ourselves better, how to carry ourselves in a space, how to know how to use our body and our body language and things like that.
Yeah, so it's a big mix of type of lectures y'all have outside of it.
Yeah, it's kind of holistic in a way, and like learning how to use all of ourselves and not just our message, but also how we carry ourselves and things like that.
Yeah, awesome. Cool stuff. So I'm curious here, because you said a little bit that one of the reasons you felt attracted to KS Pilots was the experiential focus.
Yeah.
And you're mentioning here some like project period, y'all are getting into it, putting your hands into. So what do you think is the value of that? What do you get out of that?
I actually want to bring it from the other side because I do definitely appreciate the experiential side of the learning. But I had a previous education, the one I mentioned, that had a lot of that part. And why I really enjoy KS Pilot is because it's really strengthened through the lectures. So it's got this really neat balance between theory and practical. And I feel like, for instance, with the 30th anniversary, we were going to be creating a project and we could be just thrown out there like guinea pigs, figure it out and fail and see what happens. But we were actually given a solid or decent foundation, at least, with tools that we could have had at our disposal to figure out how to do a process design or how to do experience design or how to do project management. And it was up to us to then figure out how to implement these tools, how to do projecting, how to design a night, how to do experience design where we can create an impact on our guests when they come from the start of the night to the end. And I think it's only with the two together that we can actually have a solid foundation for our education, because experiences are all great, they're all well and good, but if you just have an experience but you don't actually take any learning out of that, it doesn't amount to much. And I think on top of that, especially after the first CP, the first client project, we had a really long session of reflection that followed the experience itself. And so I think it's a lot about also then the learnings that come afterwards and how to like really extract that at the end and find something concrete to pull away. That is the most fundamental part of the learning. So as much as I think the experience is really important, and without that, like, you don't really have some lived experience to call on to.
Got it.
You need both of these aspects to be able to feel like you actually are learning something.
Wow, yeah, sounds very balanced.
Yeah, I think so. I think they've got a good recipe going on here.
Cool. Yeah, I can relate to that part about harvesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Condensation a little bit. That I believe I work very much myself with like learning by doing.
Yeah.
I like to get in the dirt. And usually I progress a lot when I'm in there. But I haven't been so prompted to reflect on those moments as I have in KP.
Yeah.
And I notice that when I do, in particular in a group, like together, to hear what other people's takes was on the same experience, all the stuff, I feel like I get a lot out of it. So I can relate. Yeah, it's nice to hear it from you as well. Now, I'm a little bit curious in terms of that resistance that you spoke of in the beginning with regard to the universities of the UK. Where are you at with that resistance in regard to KP? Does that exist?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think I have been grown up in a household that really encouraged me to have a critical approach to my surroundings, to my world, and to my life. So it's kind of hard to tame that. So it kind of follow me wherever I go, in a sense. But yeah, I think I've spoken to you about this previously. It's come up in my experience here at KAOSPILOT, especially at the beginning. And I think that was maybe more about the teething phase when I came across a new concept.
Explain teething phase.
It's kind of like when you're finding your teeth, like kind of maybe when it's like a difficult process to kind of adjust to something new where your teeth are growing out and you're trying to figure out how to use them. And I think it was primarily because this whole environment was quite different to what I was used to. The community that I was used to had a different atmosphere, different culture, and maybe there was a resistance in me to find my place in that. And maybe it also just clashed with some of my own values. But I think there were also some other fundamental things that I think were lacking, and I was critical of them. And I think that's natural to have when you're coming to a place new, like when you're new to a place.
Of course.
But I think something that like stood out to me, and I found a way to articulate that quite recently, was that I felt like I was a bit different from the whole when I came to KAOSPILOT. Like, I didn't really naturally fit into the space, and I felt that the most when I came to the application workshop, and I felt there was this really clear culture that didn't really resonate with me here, and it was a very extravagant and flamboyant kind of space. And I think that there's a real beauty of why that stands out here, and why KAOSPILOT has quite a big name in Aarhus. It's because of this culture. But that was not something that I saw as a prominent part of myself, and I felt like a bit alien to that environment. And then we recently did a activity in our team, which is called an insight profile. And on that profile, it's similar to like a personality test. And you basically get given a profile showing like 4 elements of your character. And it turned out that 75% of our team had the same profile, or like the same kind of focus in their profile. And I was part of that 25% who was not.
It was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something that the person who was holding that workshop told us was like, they expect most people in KAOSPILOT to be part of that 75%. So there's a clear culture that's been cultivated by the majority here in this school. And it kind of gave me some tool or some form of insight to understand why it is that I felt that way initially. but it also gave me some kind of strength to recognize my purpose or my value here in this environment, what I can bring that's also different and unique into this environment. And sometimes that can be a challenge. I have also some people in my team who struggle with that position, that they don't want to have to carry all that weight of being the different one in the group, to have to kind of balance the equilibrium or... Yeah, I don't know if I feel that way myself, but I think I felt that on the first day I came, that there was this clear imbalance. And I think maybe there will be people in the future who would feel that way. And I think it's something we've talked a lot about in our team, about how we would like to make the application workshop so we can try to accommodate for all the different kind of nuances that can exist, so we can make this school something that is applicable for anybody and not just somebody who fits into that 75% of what can be termed as extroverted, outgoing, sociable kind of people, because that's not the only kind of leader that should exist.
No.
And if we're trying to be a leadership school or a project management school, we should try to be someone that can fit for something that can fit for any type of leader, because we should
Definitely
define which kind of leader we think the school or the world needs.
Yeah, I like that you say that. It's been a topic in our team as well, where you talk so much about leadership and you talk so much about what it means to have an enterprising spirit. And when you say those words, a lot of people have a certain image that comes to mind that overlaps very much with each other. But a lot of people in the team, as individuals, feel alienated from that image. And so that tension is something that I think inevitably needs to be explored at an education like this, because we also exist in that context societally.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's exciting that you guys are talking about the application workshop. Trying to make some changes. So on that note of like future steps, I'd like to hear from you about where do you see yourself going in your future, in the idea that you stay in Chaos Pilots.
Yeah, and like my future in Chaos Pilot or beyond Chaos Pilot.
Whatever excites you or that you want to talk about. Yeah.
I think my biggest spark or my biggest drive in life at the moment is about different social justice issues, and how to kind of find a way to mobilize people, or also not give people a voice, but give people a space to exercise their voice. And I think this school is a perfect place for me to explore that idea and try out how that could work. And I think there are plenty of opportunities within the school with initiatives that are brought by you, for example, or even this podcast in a way is a way to exercise my own voice. But yeah, I think I'm trying to really explore all the different methods of how that can look like. And so I kind of have like my concept, but I really want to explore different methodologies, I think. And I think this topic that we just spoke about how to make Chaos Pilot an inclusive space, to make sure we give people a fertile platform where they can exercise their own voice, is something that I care a lot about. And I think it's really relevant for the future of Chaos Pilot, that it's not an exclusive setting where there is a very intrusive or like very strong culture that feels exclusive in a way.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it can close things down.
Yeah, or it can also open up for some people, but maybe not everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. That 25%.
Yeah.
So, now lastly, we're gonna wrap it up right now, but I'd like to check something in with you first, because as somebody who's felt this and walked this journey yourself about looking for something different than what traditional orthodox university experiences provide, what would you say to another student or aspiring student that feels similarly, that looks for an alternative education? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I think it's something that has to be quite intuitive, and I think you'll know it's the right thing for you when it comes to you. Like you can also seek it out, but I think that when you if you do seek it out and you do come across it, to try to explore it and unfold the layers a little bit, because I think this place is quite complex and nuanced. And especially when like we talk about what is a project and how many variations of projects there are, it kind of speaks to how this place can be really for anyone, but also you need to find your own space in this place for it. And I think that can only happen when you speak to people who are coming here or who are living a path of alternative education.
To reach out, talk to people, listen to your instincts.
Definitely, yeah.
Beautiful. Nuggets of wisdom out here. We're getting it. And I want to thank you so much for coming in. It's been a pleasure to host you.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.